Hello, I'm your host, Linda Kasonde. I'm a lawyer who spent several years as an advocate for human rights, justice, and the rule of law in my native country, Zambia. This podcast was born out of the need to share women's experiences of leadership and to advocate for more women to take up leadership positions, based on themes in my memoir, Women, Resilience, and the Will to Lead. We cover topics ranging from motherhood to running for office, ambition, and managing the imposter syndrome. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to take a sharp right back to your career. So we've talked about the fact that you work in different kinds of banking over the years, particularly in international development finance. Could you tell us what your experiences in all the different jobs you've done across the globe have taught you about being a leader?
First of all, that it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, that it can be very lonely.
Mm-hmm.
My priest actually, at one point in my career, told me, Dolika, leadership is a very lonely place, but it is an anointed place. You have been put there for a reason. You have to be different. You can't be a leader amongst 100 people and say, I'm a leader of 100. You are a level above, maybe 2 levels above others. So you are leaving behind maybe your compatriots, your friends, some family members. So it can be very lonely, but it is an anointed place, because what you do there, if you do it right, will actually then filter down and uplift those. There's an analogy which I won't get right, or a quote which I won't get right, but it's about small ships raise the waters. So the water rises, the more ships you have. They bounce, they grow, they sail. Leadership is about your character. Your character and your brand. I might speak about them in the same context, just in the interest of time. You can go anywhere in the world, be anything in the world, but you will only rise above others when you are perceived to be of a particular character, consistently so. You carry a certain brand. So for example, for myself, to bring this alive, you have to have certain standards. Standards and respect for me go together. So if somebody invites you for dinner, and then you just rock up in sweats, that person has cooked for you, has taken the trouble, they've been for 4 hours, they've shopped, they've spent money, and the least you can do is to accord them that respect. And I think it's very important that we treat everything in life with a sense of respect for that person who is offering you that. But it also shows self-respect, how I turn up. And how you turn up, whether it's in the office or somebody's house, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. So if you walk into my house and you come with my nephew and you've got your hoodie on your head, I think twice. I know it is the way of the new generation, but I think twice. How many times has a young man walked into your house and they've got a cap and they don't remove it? It's not good manners. Manners. In the olden days, we used to say manners. I don't even know if that word exists anymore in our daily lives. They speak volumes about who you are. What else comprises culture? Your tradition, your culture, where you come from. So I remember visiting from the US. I was visiting Zambia and I went to see the former president. And he had an entourage of people around him from different parts of the world. He was entertaining. And he asked me for water. So when I went to give him the water, you do what you do, right? You curtsy. It's your father. You don't just hand him water like this. Even amongst us, my sisters, my cousins, we don't just give each other a piece of paper like, Nilinda. We always have to do this. Those are the good parts of our tradition that I was saying we must retain and we must keep. And those are what distinguish you from other people. So a good leader is distinguishable. A good leader is a step above. A good leader is a ladder above. But there are good leaders. We talk about leadership a lot, and we assume leadership means good leadership. There is bad leadership. Drug lords are leaders. Car heist people who run these car rings and things, they're leaders. They are leading a pack of people who follow them diligently, religiously, loyally. So even as we speak about leadership, we must speak about good leadership. And those are the qualities that rebuild yourself, rebuild a nation, rebuild people, not things that destroy. So if you think about a drug baron, they make lots of money, they're leaders, but they're destroying lives. What kind of leadership is that? You know? So there's a lot about what distinguishes you as you go out there in the world. And the other thing which we spoke about a little bit earlier is your identity. The more you say to people, I am Zambian, I come from Zambia, the more they respect you, because they know that you have taken identity and you're not ready to dilute that by any means. You can add on to it. You can borrow from the American culture and add on to it. You can borrow from the English culture, French culture, and add on to it. But the fundamental skeleton, the framework, is Dolika. And that framework then leads to how do you make sure, I'm a bit long-winded on this one, but how do you make sure that that framework remains intact? And anywhere you go, people say, oh, we wanted to do something in banking, for example, or in development finance. Have you spoken to Dolika? You must be the have you spoken to person. And so that also comes from now what I like to call my circle. And inside that circle in which I stand, a little bit like the TEDx circle, are words that describe what I consider to be good leadership qualities. So commanding respect, giving respect, speaking well, articulate what you want to say. There's no need to use bad words. My father always used to say, I don't send you to school to use bad words. Muli vocabulary. You must be able to express yourself, not with shortcuts, not with slang, but with proper speaking. It's part of who you are. It's part of discipline. Swear words do not feature in my circle. So if you're around me and you use the S ending T word, I can immediately call you out and say, not in my presence. Outside of my circle are what I will not tolerate. And honestly, play this game. I encourage you with yourself. Draw it down on a piece of paper, put yourself in the middle, and put inside the circle next to you the words that make Linda who she is, and put outside that circle the words that make Linda feel nervous, uncomfortable. You will have started to build what distinguishes you wherever you go in the world. And my language, I love to speak my language. As I said, I don't speak it well, but I speak it better than many, many people. I try to speak Bemba. I've grown up in a family that is half Bemba. I think I have the words, I just have the accent completely wrong. But they understand what I say. You know, so knowing your language, because that is who you are as well. You know, that is who you are. So for me, leadership is about just identifying what differentiates you and what makes you a rock. A rock. And when people see you, they should see calm. A lot of my staff used to always say, but Dolika, how do you stay so calm? And I'll tell them, inside here, it's not calm right now. But I have to exude calm and control. Because if I don't, the ship will sink. The captain cannot panic. The boatswain cannot panic. The sailors can panic. But the captain cannot panic. You're leading people. It's a big responsibility. And be fair, be transparent, be open about who you are. But do not be afraid to people that work for you. So again, it's that lonely place thing. On a Friday, you're not going to say, let's go guys, No, you can't be there. Because now you're blurring the lines between the role that you play as a leader and the role that you play in camaraderie and friendship. You can have a TGIF once a month or whatever, but you should not be in the same playground as the people that work for you. And then cultivate your successor. Make each of them feel like they can be your successor. When they do well, shout about it. When they don't do well, don't shout about it. Give them air cover. A leader does not shout at a member of staff in front of their colleagues. They'll just say after the meeting, by the way, X, can you come to my office? Let's have a little chat. And in that office, they will tell you do not denigrate people who are already looking up to you as a superior in front of other people. You just don't do it like that. There's a number of other things, but that's a flavor of some of the things that I have experienced in life. And then if you really want to be a leader, keep in the company of leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Your ambition must be, and I'm not saying you then don't go and play, do picnic with people, you do that. But where you get your intellectual growth, when you think about, am I going to this affair or am I not going to this affair, you have to think, what am I going to learn from the people who are going to be there? It's a learning environment all the time.
So you've talked about leadership being a lonely place, a rarefied environment, if you like. You've also talked about in a TEDx talk, actually it wasn't a TEDx talk, it was your interview on ambition.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Dolika Banda.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about solitude and the need to enjoy your own company, and the importance of, I guess having a time for yourself to reflect as well. So tell us a bit about that journey in terms of how you manage your solitude and why it's important for people to do.
Some call it lonely. People are always
There's a
asking,
difference.
aren't you lonely?
No.
And I say, no, I am not.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy my solitude. I enjoy time with Dolika.
Mm-hmm.
Come, Dolika, let's just spend some quiet time together. Tell me what's going on. I have that conversation with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay? What would you like to eat today?
Mm-hmm.
What are we thinking about how we did yesterday? How are we going to change it tomorrow? It's reflection, self-reflection, which then leads to reflection around your environment, your surroundings. So the question always makes people baffled in the way I answer it, because I tell them I do not own a television set.
Mm-hmm.
I have not owned a television set since 2004. And many people get shocked. The immediate question is, don't you get bored, number one? Number two, how do you stay in touch with what is happening in the world? And I say to people, in today's world with technology, you can pull information or information can be pushed at you. Television is information pushed at you. If you're disciplined enough to manage the push, how many channels are there these days? Over 100. Mm-hmm. If you're disciplined enough to manage the push, well and good. Whilst at the same time picking out what is meaningful and what will help your growth. People will watch television, especially sports, they'll watch one game after another, after another, after another. Now, sports I like because it has a certain discipline behind the sportsman or the sportswoman. But you're not a runner, you're not a sprinter, you're not a tennis player, But you spend a whole weekend over Wimbledon watching tennis. What have you gained? Unless it is teaching you something, it is taking away something. And I choose sport probably is a bad example because you can learn tactics, all sorts of things out of that. But soaps, our Nigerian movies, with no disrespect to the producers, and they build these things, dramas, soaps, in such a way that you are addicted. You watch version 1, you feel like you have to watch version 2. When I did have television, I would have people come to visit me and they'd be watching one after the other until early hours of the morning. And they'll tell you, I failed to get away. I had to see what was going to happen next. So it takes away completely. How does the world control the world itself? It is probably 5% of the global population that controls the rest of the 95% of us. It is through media and largely through television. And so you have to be discerning of yourself and guarded of your personality and jealous of who you are so that you don't just let anybody and everybody bring who they are into your space. And that is when, for me, I create. First of all, I reflect, but I also deflate. When you are also in high-powered environments all the time, by high-powered I don't mean hierarchy of people, but just the demands, you are a legal person. You know what that can feel like. You get home sometimes and you just say to yourself, I just want quiet.
Decompressing.
Decompress. The ghost zone, as they used to call it. Otherwise, you don't stop. So for me, I see solitude as my think tank. Yeah, that's Dolika's space. And then you can come and visit me, and if I'm not in the think tank, we'll have fun and we'll talk, but otherwise I have to make space. It's not a particular time of day. It's not a particular day of the week. It just happens, and I just say to myself, okay, you need to stop now.
My sister likes to say that only boring people don't like their own company.
Only boring people don't like their own
That's
company.
right.
I'll quote her. I'll remember that one because I like it. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And each one of us individually, whoever you are, if you really look deep in yourself, you're a great person. You're an interesting individual. Write your own book. Do something. Write notes. This is my dream for the next week or whatever it is. So don't fear being alone and don't revere being with others. Don't fear being alone and don't revere being with others.
So you've mentioned the word discipline, sometimes specifically, sometimes not specifically, in talk about standards, appropriateness, character. Why is having discipline important, particularly to succeed? And why should other people be more disciplined in their lives?
I think discipline is the center line. Let me describe it as an athlete running track. You have your lane. If you go out of that lane, you are off track. You have that lane and that lane is focused to the end line. Staying within that lane is what is going to assure your success. Reaching the goal in the fastest way, most efficient, most successful way possible. The moment you start to waver outside of that line, you are diluting your ability to get to the end goal. Hence my circle analogy. That is my circle of discipline. The moment I get out of it, I'm taking away from my goal, from my dreams, from my character, from my brand, all of that. So being able to just stay focused on what it is that you want to achieve in life requires a lot of discipline. Too many of us. And if you're not disciplined, you affect other people's productivity and output. So you can be disciplined as an individual, but if you work in a team, somebody comes in, this filming crew here knew that they were filming today. Suppose one of them arrives 10 minutes late. Stops everybody else. So discipline with time. Somebody says, I'll see you at 11. I will see you at 11. I know I arrived at 11:06. I got a bit lost. But time is important. Discipline yourself to time. Discipline is another definer and differentiator of who you are. People will say, Linda is always on time. Or they will say, Linda is always late. Discipline will mean that you're always on time. So it is what keeps you in line, assuming you have a goal set, an aim in life. And I encourage everybody listening here to, doesn't matter how old you are. That solitude conversation includes, what have I achieved so far? Whatever achievement looks like, because that's relative also. What have I done well so far? What have I not done so well? And what am I going to do about those things that I've not done so well to reach a certain stage in life? Ask yourself, discipline is asking yourself, who do I want to be? What legacy do I want? That day when I go to meet my maker, and he asks me, did you run the race? I should be able to say with great confidence, yes, I did. Did you use the talent that I gave you and multiply it, or did you bury it in the ground? I should be able to answer to my Lord and say, I multiplied it 10 times. All of that takes discipline. People who have credit cards, we have credit cards these days. It's not your money. You can't go and spend at the weekend like credit card is your money. It is not your money, Ninkongole. And it will catch up with you. And it will destroy your life and the lives of those around you. Drugs. I know there are psychological reasons that people get into some of these things. Very often they are victims. But sometimes it's a choice. And that choice is lack of discipline. You're supposed to be in school and you're bunking classes. That's lack of discipline. Where will it take you? Your friends will become lawyers, they'll become technicians, media technicians, and then you will resent them. They think they are better than I am. Yes, they are, but they paid a price. They paid a price, and that price is endurance. The Bible says adversity leads to endurance. Endurance leads to character. Character gives hope. That's what you want your life. We go through. Life happens. Life happens. What do? Do you build endurance to it and resilience? When you build that resilience, your character builds with it. Once your character builds, you have hope. No matter what happens, you say, okay, this has happened, but I can start again tomorrow. That is discipline. And if you don't have it, you're a train wreck waiting to happen. It's a train wreck waiting to happen. It can take 2 years, can take 2 months, can take 20 years to happen. Sometimes even in marriages, you find a couple have been married, their children have even left the house, they are working, they're living on their own. And then the wife says, I'm divorcing him. There are issues of discipline that have happened in that home for many, many years. And because of this thing that we call in Zambia shipikisha, I think, people just stay because they feel they have to stay. But if one party in a marriage is lacking discipline, you're destroying. If a father or a mother, when you're in a home, my mother raised 6 of us. Then my aunt raised 14 plus of us. But there was discipline in that house. She ran it like an army colonel. That's why even in places that are supposed to keep law and order, fundamentally for me, discipline goes hand in hand with law and order, goes hand in hand with building and maintaining. You can't build a country when there is breakdown of law and order. You can't. I walk around this city sometimes. I've spoken about it before. There is a complete breakdown of law and order. If each of us in our individual capacity exercise discipline, before I took my McDonald's takeaway or whatever it is and throw it in front of somebody's yard, and the next person who comes along, instead of picking it up, they also throw something else. That is lack of discipline. And the person who is supposed to be in control of making sure that thing does not become edgy, has got to be disciplined and has got to tell people, hey, people, you need to clean up here. You need to clean up. That's the law of this country and this city. Gentlemen, you can't just be facing people's walls and doing ka number one. It's against the law. That's lack of discipline. A small thing, but we do it and we see it. A little boy sitting in the car, you're going, hey, mommy, auntie, look, that man is doing pee-pee. I mean, what is that? How can you run a nation and run it successfully and get the best out of all the talent that we have without discipline? You can't. You can't run a home without discipline. You can't run your company without discipline. We couldn't do this interview without discipline. It's got to be so inculcated in who you are that you don't even think about it. On the roads, accidents happen. Why? Lack of discipline. Somebody thinks they can just cut in front of you and they're carrying 20 people. They don't care about those people and their lives. It's lack of discipline. And that is something I hope this country can come back to. We used to have it. I hope we can rebuild it and find it.
Well, that's an excellent segue to my final question to you, which is, how can we get the best out of who we are as a people?
It's a final one, but it's the hardest one. I think, first of all, it's that all the things that we've discussed here today, Linda, if each and every one of us at the individual level took ownership and said, I am going to own this. This is going to define who I am. When people see me walking down the street, they'll say, oh, it is that person. Individually, all the things that we've talked about, if we exercised them actively, society will be a better place. We are society. I am society. Together we are society. Next person makes a collective society. So individually and collectively, we have got to take responsibility for the Zambia that we want to live in. And live in comfortably and happily. And not feel insecure, not feel despondent that I don't have a future in this country. We must be excited about being in this country. So that individual collective responsibility is one. I think what has made me land on, I could have landed on either side of the tracks, right? If you follow the history that we just talked about. What made me land on the right side of the tracks today is self-respect. Because if you respect yourself, you will respect other people. So each of us have got to have self-respect. Pride of country, pride of nation, pride of self, pride of our societies, who we are, where we live, and holding each other accountable to this. So if you are in a setting and you do see somebody doing something that doesn't build us as a nation, or build us as individuals, or build us as a group or as a family, we don't call out. We're not very good at calling out bad behavior. We need to start calling out bad behavior. I think the moment, and it's a citizenry issue again, a good citizen will call it out. You know this thing that we say, no, they are cadres, makadas, you can't touch them, the street vendors, you can't touch them. You know, this is just, I don't understand it. I really, you can see my passion right now. I struggle with this. Because this country will, I have a good friend, maybe I'll end it on this one. I have a very good friend, he's wealthy in the scheme of things. He's from the US. And I remember he said to me once, we were traveling within the Africa region when we were doing investment. And we landed in one country, and the headlines that week in The Economist, I think it was the hustle and bustle of Africa. And it showed Utuntemba in our speak, shacks, these lean-tos where people are selling oil, fish, tomato, then they are braising something on the side, on the brazier. You don't see any toilets inside. No ablution, no water. You're wondering, this is cholera waiting to happen. We had an offside conversation around cholera. It's waiting to happen. You can't be proud of that as a nation or as an individual. And until we have that sense of pride and appreciation for what God has given us in our persons and in the endowments of this country, the nature, the copper, the cobalt, the flora, the fauna, the rivers. Even this drought, we wouldn't be feeling so heavily if we were not allowing people to cut trees. People have come into our country, they're cutting forests and exporting them to make furniture, to sell it back to us. So you're double whammy hit, 3 times actually. You're hit because you're now degrading your natural protection against drought. Number 2, you are experiencing drought. Number 3, they are not paying the kind of taxes they should be paying. Our stuff is going out of here and they're not paying the kind of taxes that they should be paying. We know that. I'll probably be hauled up by someone for saying this, but it's the truth. And as good citizens, we should stop this in this country. We should stop our lack of ownership and protection for our country. Like this country is like our child, right? We should protect it with so much jealousy and so guardedly. And we should never, never allow somebody else to be in the front seat and we are in the trailer in our own country. The day we decide that, individually and collectively, this country will start to change. So I have big dreams and I have high hopes. So I call out everybody, please let's join together on this journey of responsible citizenry and pride in being Zambian. In Zambia or wherever you are, but pride in being Zambian. This is where we come from. This is where we come from. Chalo chamkaka na uchi, land of milk and honey. That's what we used to call it. And I believe it can be called that again. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Dolika. And it's been a really wonderful, rich conversation, spanning all manner of things that are just coming back to self and managing oneself, and therefore how you can contribute to your society as a result. So I've really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. So please tune in to our next episode as we continue with season 2 of Women Resilience and the Will to Lead. Thank you for tuning in to Women Resilience and the Will to Lead. I'd like to thank our production team, Keen Kings Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and press the subscribe button.